Hey there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayleigh, and on this channel we talk about healing and wellness and faith, but today we have a bit of a different topic. We are opening the door to more of my life, and I'm going to share with you all an insight into my life in living abroad. The events that have transpired over the last couple of days is what has inspired this video. I have gotten food poisoning for the second time, and even just this morning. It's about 3 in the afternoon when I'm filming this, but this morning I was suffering. A couple of things that I really need to say before we get into the fun part of this topic is one, I am sharing my experience, my opinions, my life. The things that I say do not represent Turkish culture on a whole, nor does it even represent the whole country, because I only live in one single city in Turkey. I cannot represent for you what life is like in Istanbul or Izmir or Bursa. Just like in the United States, California, Texas, and New York are also different. There is a difference between the cities in the country. Building off of that point, I intend to share my true experience with honesty, and sometimes honesty can cause people a little bit of a ruffled feather. It can cause offense, but I'm not trying to be offensive in any way at all. I voluntarily live in this country. I am married to a Turkish man. That is why this topic is even at hand. The final thing that I need to say before we dive into the main points is that Turkey is not Europe. And you could ask different Turks that, and different Turks will give you different answers. My husband, who's Turkish, who's lived in many European countries, insists that we are not in Europe, and others will say that we are. The further west you are, like in Istanbul, people will surely say that this is Europe, and the further east you go, people will say it is not. Turkey is a very unique place in the world. It is neither Europe, it is neither the Middle East, but it is a little bit of both at the same time. This video is not at all romanticizing moving abroad. I know that there are many videos that do that, many videos that are like, if you just move to Europe, your life will change, everything will be better. I don't believe that. As someone who has lived overseas a couple of times, I do not stand by that. Yes, environment makes an impact upon our life, but the way in which we approach environment and whether or not we have a relationship with God also, because this is a channel that is all about God-centered wellness. There are so many videos you can watch that are all about how if you just leave the United States and move to Europe, all of your problems will be fixed, changed, life will be amazing. I don't believe that there's any one place in this world that I could move to and my life would be perfect because of the environment. I believe we live in a rather messed up world that is far away from any ideal that it could possibly be, and that there's not a single nation or culture that encapsulates the full goodness of mankind. I think that every single one of them has a lot of taint, has a lot of ick. So my point here is that I'm not romanticizing moving abroad. That's not what this video is talking about. This video is getting a little bit more honest than that. So without further ado, the ways that living in Turkey has changed my health and my wellness. Let's get into it. The very first thing that I want to talk about is diet and my grocery shopping. So first of all, I generally don't do the grocery shopping in my life anymore. My husband does all of that for me because it can be rather chaotic. Additionally, I tend to go to the bazaars more than I go to the grocery store. I do go to the grocery store for just little basic things throughout the week and little fun treats, but the weekly bazaar is where it's at living in Turkey. Now, if you don't know what a bazaar is, it's a bazaar, which is like an outdoor market for fruits, vegetables, eggs, bread, basically all of the staples. It's similar to a farmer's market, but farmer's markets are so trendy and aesthetic and expensive. This is not. This is an extremely affordable, local, loud, sometimes very crowded, a little bit dirty environment where you can get really amazing fruits, veggies, eggs, bread, cheeses, grains. It's really incredible. I tend to not do the bazaar shopping. I find it very overwhelming, but I am super happy when my husband goes and brings back a huge supply. For reference, in the United States, I used to buy my fruit and vegetables by the piece. I thinking like, okay, I'm gonna buy 5 apples and I can have 1 apple each day this week, or I'm gonna buy 3 or 4 potatoes and then I can make 2 different potato meals, like this. Here, we just buy it by the kilo. If we're gonna get mushrooms, if we're gonna get green beans, if we're gonna get lettuce, cabbage, whatever, we just buy it by the kilo. So because of that, there's a different mentality of abundance of whole food. Now, I can imagine me saying that right there could ruffle some feathers, but that mentality doesn't exist in the States, even though the economy in the States doesn't struggle as difficultly as Turkey's economy does. Things in Turkey right now are very, very expensive, and people are very concerned with being able to fill their fridges, fill their cars, function in their day-to-day life because of the expense of everyday goods. At the same time, they have this culture of pazars where there is an abundance of fresh produce, like an abundance, not just the produce section at Walmart or Hy-Vee or wherever you do your shopping. I said the most basic places. Could be Trader Joe's, could be Whole Foods, whatever. But here you go to a local place outside and there's just so many vendors selling the same things. So you get to pick and choose and they're different prices and you get to try things. That is an abundant Whole Foods availability that I never had in the United States. So I eat a lot more Whole Foods. And like I said, I eat dairy. I eat yogurt on a very regular basis. I consume milk. And if I overdo it, I can have some issues. But I think it's generally if I'm overdoing it in context of sugar that I'm having issues. So that's a really positive thing. Diet and shopping, food shopping culture has been really awesome here. I do want to say that I was a really healthy eater in the United States as well, and I always have been. So even though there's more of it available to me here, it's not that I wasn't seeking it out in the States. It's just, again, like I said, the reality that it's just more abundant here and not as expensive. So it's more grabbable. Like you can buy an entire kilo of eggplant, whereas in the States, I'd buy one. So cool. Here's a flip side of diet and nutrition. I rarely eat out living in Turkey. This is something that's a bit negative about living here, and it is that I believe, along with many other people who live here as foreigners, that there is high risk of food poisoning. I am recovering from food poisoning right now. I did make a TikTok about this, and if you follow my TikTok, you know that I just talk about being an American in Turkey. I don't bring the wellness and healing into it so much anymore. And a lot of Turkish people were in a disagreement with me, but think about the fact that this city is a gigantic population, and I come from a really teeny tiny place, and a lot of expats do. A lot of people who move from the United States over to Europe are coming from places that are smaller than the place they're coming to in Europe. And in Turkey, the cities are really, really intensely populated, especially if you're looking into Istanbul, looking into Ankara. I would even say like Antalya and Izmir, even though the populations are smaller, everything's really tight. So there's a lot more germs happening. It's just fact. Like you can't escape that. So I think for people who are visiting and for foreigners such as myself, you have a higher risk of food poisoning. And unfortunately, that risk is increasing right now because of the state of the economy. Everything's just really expensive. So I think that a lot of restaurants are cutting little teeny tiny corners that add up in time, like not throwing meat out even though just because it's not expired, but you really should be throwing it out. Like there's a lot of food regulation in the States that I know about because I worked in the food industry that I don't know what the regulations are here. I know there are regulations. I am not at all saying that there are not regulations, but desperate times means desperate measures. And so the risk of food poisoning is increasing. And also, the quality of the food is not matching the price tag anymore. It's very easy to think that because I'm an American here, I live on a dollar budget, but actually my husband and I live off of his salary in Turkish lira. So we don't look at a plate of food that's 500 lira and say, oh yeah, it's like what, like $20? No, we're like, that's 500 lira. So it's extremely expensive to eat out. And I have heard that it's getting very expensive to eat out in the United States too. I don't know. I haven't been there in almost 3 years. But what I can say is the price tag for food here shocks me sometimes because you can go to McDonald's and like a Big Mac meal is almost 200 lira. Or you can go to like Midpoint or Big Chef's and find some type of similar meal and it's only like 80 lira more. So it's like, you're paying for gourmet and it's almost the same price as McDonald's, and you're probably more likely to get sick from the gourmet than you are from the McDonald's. So I really just don't eat out. And in the States, I ate out all the time. Now, I did cook a lot. I enjoy cooking. I've always enjoyed cooking, but I had my favorite diners. I had my favorite cafes. I was never going to a restaurant in the States thinking, should I avoid this or avoid that? Because maybe I'm going to get a foodborne pathogen or whatever it's called. But here I very actively consider that and miss the mark. And I have many friends who live abroad here who get food poisoning even from places that they go to regularly. So it is happening, and I don't really know what to tell you about it if you're coming to visit other than to just take it easy. I don't know, because how do you avoid it, right? How do you know which place has a problem or doesn't have a problem? Because even the restaurants that are considered to be reliable, expensive, high-quality restaurants are starting to have problems. I'm always dealing with that sun, right? Let me see if I can close a curtain. Ooh, feeling queasy right now. Had to shut a curtain a little bit just to get that sun squared away. My studio lights that I brought with me blew up, even though I plugged them in with a converter, so I don't have a studio light right now. Eventually, my lighting quality will improve, but right now we're just making way. So in context of me not eating out a lot, that segues us into the next thing that Turkey has changed about my health and my wellness and my lifestyle a bit, and that is that I stay home a lot. I am from the Midwest. I am from a small town in Iowa, and I went to school in Iowa, lived in Missouri, Nebraska, so I've always been in the Midwest, and I enjoyed leaving my home. Not all the time, I've definitely been a homebody who enjoys to stay at home and enjoys to be cozy in my home, but I left the house very regularly to do one of three things. Either I was going to work, or I was going to go grocery shopping or go to a cafe, or I was going outside to nature. So when I was living in the United States, it was really easy, especially when I lived alone in my own apartment, to just leave my home, go down to my car, get in the car, drive 10, 15 minutes if it was all the way across town, not deal with any traffic, have a peaceful, joyful ride listening to music windows down, and sürekli get there, just continuously drive to the place. That does not exist here. The population of Ankara is about 6 to 7 million people, so leaving your house requires so much patience and dealing with the outside in a way I have never experienced before. I would compare it to Chicago and New York City even, because the traffic is so intense, everything's so big, everything's so loud, the buildings reflect the sun so intensely, and I actually have a diagnosed sensory sensitivity disorder that is very well managed now, but living in this city can really stir and activate it, that everything is so intense and intimidating, and there's so many people, and I take public transit all the time, so sometimes it takes me 40 minutes to an hour to get where I need to go, and this isn't just a peaceful journey. In the States, that's driving to a whole nother city. I'm not even out of the neighborhood when I do that here. It's just that I'm dealing with such intense traffic. Last year, there was a holiday here that everybody left the city for, but my husband and I stayed, and suddenly it was the population went from millions and millions and millions to maybe just 1 or 2 million, and that might be an exaggeration, but we were able to drive to the places we wanted to go with ease, and we were it's a completely different city when it's not overpopulated. I heard a study one time that was talking about how nature really is so beneficial for us, and we know that, we really do know that, but that spending 2 hours a week in nature can actually really improve symptoms of depression and anxiety and help us feel grounded, and that when we look upon plants, it rests our eyes, because in nature we don't have these constant hard lines, edges, reflection, the plants absorb everything. There's a lot of curves in nature. There's a lot of symmetry. And concrete jungle city is the complete opposite of that. So I really do believe that it is very taxing on my mind to be outside. So I actually find a lot of joy being home these days because it's so tiring to go outside. A different point to make about that is the way that I exercise. Living in Turkey has changed the way that I exercise because I'm not going to go to a gym here. I won't. First of all, they're extremely expensive. There's no Planet Fitness here where you pay $10, $12 a month. That's what the price was before COVID when I had a membership. It's very expensive and it's very difficult for me to find the willpower to get to the gym. I don't want to go to the gym and work out and build up all these endorphins and whatnot and then face the city. I don't want to do it. I don't think I can. And I used to be a trail runner and a hiker, and especially when I lived in Missouri, I lived on the edge of the Ozarks, which is a really old mountain range, but they're all plateaued, so it's like really, really big hills. And it has a lot of beautiful hiking. And I used to go hiking and trail running weekly. And I would spend maybe 5 hours to 10 hours. I would spend 5 to 10 hours a week in nature exercising my body like that. So when I got over here, I had to really figure out how was I going to do that differently. So I ended up investing in a treadmill. And now I use my treadmill almost daily, generally for walking, occasionally for running. And I do a lot of strength, weight exercises. And it is not the same. I miss the outdoors. I miss the nature. And I've talked about that before with Turks, especially one of my Turkish cousin-in-law lives in Istanbul. She comes to Ankara and she was like, it's the city of trees. And I'm like, where? There's no way. So the perspective just really changes per person. And there's so many people who live here who can't understand that I'm from the Midwest, where you can stand at a certain point and see all the way to the horizon. And the only thing you see is green fields of growing corn, and that parks are huge and that you can go to a park and you don't even hear the sound of traffic. Whereas here, if you go to a park, it's like going to Central Park in New York. You are not outside of New York. You're surrounded by it in a man-made artificial park. It just doesn't have the same feeling. And of course I do go to parks and there are a couple of little ones around me that really early in the morning I'll go walk in. But guys, there's wild dogs here. There's all kinds of stuff happening. I've been at parks before early in the morning and dogs started barking at me and I just don't feel safe the way that I did. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel submersed in nature. I feel very homesick, actually, when I try to push myself into enjoying the nature here more than I can. Now, coming back more into a positive of me not leaving my house much and the socializing that I have here is way better than the States ever was. In the States, I feel like we have a tendency to be rather individualistic, but because the culture here is built around group living, meaning everybody lives in apartments, everybody lives on top of each other, and it's been that way for generations, there's a lot more community orientation here. So I have had people reach out to me who have found me on TikTok, who have met me at different events and have said let me get your number, let's go get a coffee. And they genuinely mean it, and we go and we have a great time. I've had this happen with Turkish women and I've had this happen with American women who are living here. And so the friendships that I have here are really amazing. They're very two-way. It's not the same experiences I've had in the past where I feel like I'm the one who's really giving a lot. And I think that there's a lot of grace that's extended toward me because I'm a foreigner. I've just had people see me struggle and actually extend a helping hand and be really kind and wonderful. The last 2 points that I have to make in this video orient themselves around shopping. There are 2 things that are really difficult to find here: hair products and skin products, and clothing that fits and is high quality. Now, I know that some people would be upset at me saying that, but when you don't have the reference point for how much is available to us in the United States, you don't understand how much I don't know what to buy, and I don't like wasting my money on trying product. Because if you just keep trying product, you ruin your skin, you ruin your hair, it just is such a waste of money. So something that's really difficult is that I can't use the hair and skin products that I was using in the States because the environment, my diet, the water, everything here is different. So my hair doesn't react the same way to the hair products I used in the West And so I've had to try to find products here, and it's not easy. I find that it's a lot harder to find natural-based products here than it was in the States. And maybe we're totally being greenwashed and I have absolutely no idea what's actually natural, but there is no place like Natural Grocers. There's no place like that where you can go and wander aisles and aisles of really awesome natural products. You can go to a Lokman, which is like an apothecary, and you can find herbs and different things, but I don't know what's what. And I went to an apothecary shop here to buy essential oils, and the essential oils were not essential oils, they were essence oils. So they had the essence of the oil in them, not the actual pharmaceutical level of quality oil. So it's really difficult to find things that I want to buy because I don't know what is good quality, what is bad quality, and I've already wasted a lot of money on things that end up just not being that great. So shopping has really changed for me. I no longer drive through a coffee shop and go to Home Goods or go to Whole Foods and go down the aisles and find different things. I just can't do that anymore. Shopping is such a different experience for me here. I loved shopping, so there's nowhere to go to leisurely stroll and look at these cool products and like maybe give yourself a little treat. There's no home decoration stores, and the home decoration stores that are here are generally like plates and cups and different types of dishes and a few decoration items, but they're so insanely expensive that I would never spend 1,200 Turkish lira on a piece of decoration. I would never do that in the United States. I would never spend $100 on a piece of decoration. And I really enjoy cozying up my home. I really enjoy these things. Of course, I'm a woman. I am that kind of woman. I love to do that. But that's just not available to me here. I also can't easily go clothes shopping. One of the reasons is that the malls are extremely overwhelming sometimes. Like, there's way too many brands, way too many options. The second reason is that it doesn't seem to matter what amount of money you spend here. The quality of the clothing is bad. And I have many Turkish friends that I talk about this with, and you have to be very selective here in choosing your clothing. I bought a dress at a pazar that was 200 lira, and I had a dress from a really nice boutique that was 1,200 lira, and both dresses had their seams bust the same way. And it wasn't a tear. It was these two seams were sewn together so hastily and terribly that they busted out. So shopping here is just something I can no longer find joy in, and in some ways that's a blessing, but in other ways it's really annoying and exhausting. And I don't like it. That's all I have to share in this video. I know that there are more things I could come up with, but I have been filming for 30 minutes. I have food poisoning. I don't feel well. I appreciate you for being here so much. You know I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. And if you like this video and you want to share it with a friend, go right ahead. You can let me know something that you're thinking. You can let me know your thoughts in the comments. If I caused anyone any offense with any of the things I said, I apologize. I'm speaking from my experience and speaking from an honest perspective of moving abroad and the way that your lifestyle changes when you move overseas. If I had stayed in the West, I wouldn't have changed. So it is good to change, and these experiences are really awesome, and I'm really grateful for them. Thank you so much. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to check out what else we have, and hit that notification bell. I'll see you next time.